Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am excited to interview John St. James, and let me tell you about him. He has been the leadership training business for well over 45 years. Through his unique style of teaching leadership skills to those who need them most, John is considered an expert in personal and leadership development. He is an international certified speaker, coach, and a mentor with John Maxwell, and has conducted leadership training in the USA, the UK, Canada, Australia, the Caribbean, and Mexico. So he recently published a book, or has a book out there, that we're going to really focus on, The Master Path. And a key piece of that is the 5 essential considerations for significance. What are those 5 essential considerations for significance? Well, we're going to find out. Please join me in welcoming my guest, John St. James. John, so happy to have a fellow Atlantan with me today.
Yes, Vicki, thank you so much. It's good to know that you're over in Roswell. We're almost neighbors. So
I know. So we got rid of the first easy question, where do you live? But I just gave that brief background about you know, where you are today, the accolades that you have. But there's more to that backstory. There's a journey that has taken you through this, you know, over 45 years of training and leadership. But there had to have been pivotal moments in your journey past that took you to lead you to where you are today. And I would love for you to share some of that journey.
yeah, so I mean, maybe very few people would know, but I would love to share. I actually, in addition to doing the coaching and the consulting that I do with business owners and instructors, I oversee an international martial arts organization. So I'm actually a 9th degree black belt. And the reason why I mention that to you is not to impress anybody, but I've been doing that for almost 50 years. So a lot of the consulting that I do are with teachers and instructors. And, for me, it started back in the mid 70s, right? So I'm dating myself here. But, I think probably the thing that kind of was, I guess we'll call it the foundation, was in 1979, I had basically 3/4 of college behind me. I was in Philadelphia and I decided I wanted to go west, right? So I was one of these young guys that as soon as I got out of high school, I wanted to go west. So I went out to California and I started at the University of the Pacific. And to make a long story short, I was such an idiot. I thought the University of the Pacific was on the Pacific Ocean. If I had really looked, I would have realized it was in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley, which is very, very hot. So I didn't like the University of the Pacific. And so I ended up going to San Diego. And the reason I went to San Diego was one of my instructors from Philadelphia had opened up a studio out there. And so I actually ended up going out there and serving an apprenticeship with him. He was a master instructor. And it turned out that from there, I actually at one point lived in the studio. I was teaching classes. I was going to the University of California in San Diego. I was doing this pretty much as my avocation, which then became my profession. There was a lot of journey in between there. I was with State Farm for years as a training analyst. But to be honest with you, the book itself, The Master's Path, is kind of that path I took
Mm,
to become a master instructor in
yeah.
in the Asian martial arts. And but it's really more than that because it talks about the qualities that are needed to be successful in life.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Growing up in Pittsburgh, I didn't really have a lot of exposure to the martial arts. And so then when my kids were young, I thought about putting them in, but I had two girls. So my grandsons now, my oldest grandson is involved in the martial arts, and going and sitting there, picking him up, taking him places, I realized how much leadership is actually taught. So, my first thoughts are, it's just a bunch of kicking and screaming and getting rid of those boys' aggressions.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is so much more, and I can see how it really does help develop those leadership muscles.
It really does. In fact, the better schools in the country that are led by, individuals who are very well trained, they
Yeah.
always start developing the skills that we find in leadership, and of course, patience and
Yes.
dedication and building resilience, building discipline, building those
Hmm.
things of self-confidence. Those things are really instrumental on the road to whether it be a black belt in the martial arts or eventually someday to becoming a master instructor.
For sure. So when we talk about the five essentials,
Mhm.
what are they and how do they align with this master's path?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what is, first of all, what is the master's path? And then
Mm,
we'll get into the five essentials. But the master's path is your life journey, and it's about
mm,
creating a masterpiece,
mm.
right? Because let's be honest, life is a gift.
Yeah.
We all got. We're very lucky that we were born in the first place. That in
Mm,
itself is a miracle. But we're on this path, and so as we take this journey, the goal of the master's path is to become a master's piece or a masterpiece.
yeah.
So there are five essentials that we talk about, and we go into detail in how we do that. But very briefly, the first one is having the proper perspective.
Mm,
I have to give credit where credit's due. That came to me from John Maxwell because I'm part of the John Maxwell team and I'm certified as a speaker, coach, mentor with them internationally. But one of the things that John Maxwell talks about, and I truly believe, is a proper perspective is critical to success. In other words, how we see things determines what we see, right? So yes, a positive mental attitude, of course, but in addition to that, having a future orientation and always, or a goal orientation. So all of these come under the proper perspective.
mm,
The second one of those essentials is to have a sacred purpose, right?
mm.
To have a purpose for being. So, what is your purpose? And I have studied many, many successful folks. I'm sure you have too, in what you do. And the one thing that's clear is that anybody that is successful has a bigger purpose,
Yeah.
and it's a sacred purpose. In other words,
Mm,
they would do it whether they were paid for it or not. And
exactly.
it really comes down to what we call sharing our spiritual gift,
Mm,
that core genius, that one thing, that superpower that you have that you can share with people and help people to learn and grow. So a sacred purpose certainly is one of them. Another one, of course, is perseverance, because
yeah.
let's
Yeah.
be honest, everything we want is uphill. Everything that's worthwhile is certainly uphill. So sticking with things, making sure that you're constantly working consistently on what you're doing, I think has got to be a big piece of that puzzle. Another one that constantly I think about is how do you stay on the path? And so again, awareness. Everybody has a bit of awareness, but the one thing about successful people is they are definitely in tune. They're
Hmm.
self-aware. they're situationally aware. And in the case of some of us that have trained a long time, there's a sense of heightened awareness.
Yeah.
So we're aware of energy. We're
Yeah.
aware of
Right.
everything that's going on around us, which starts with us, right? What
Mm-hmm.
what do we need to do and focus in on? So awareness is another one. And if we were to say what is the fifth, I would simply say it's to do what you love, to
Yeah.
find happiness, joy. I talk about it in the book, happiness, joy, and fulfillment. Find the thing that you really love to do, and it won't be work.
Yeah.
If you are at the top 1% of that, if you're really good at that, you'll never go to work a day in your life because you
Mhm.
are really following that thing that is your calling. Um, so that's just some of the essential five. Yeah, I call the essential five. I have another one called the core four. But the truth, it all comes down to this. It comes
Mhm.
down to walking the path long enough to become
Mhm.
really good at what you do. And I do feel, my point of view is in today's world, everybody wants things quickly.
Mhm.
And what we know is that anybody that has mastered anything,
Yes.
it takes a while to get there. Anything
Yeah.
that's worthwhile takes a while.
That's something whenever I was working at corporate for a long time, but interviewing people, especially in the early 2000s, I would have people that it was typical where kids would go to college for 4 years and then just immediately go for their master's.
Right.
And And so then when they came to work or apply for a job, they thought, well, I have a master's, I should be a manager. And yet they didn't understand that they hadn't mastered anything but knowledge
That's right.
and the experience piece. And so when you had that discussion with them, well, we see potential in you according to what I see on paper or in our interview, but I need you to be able to have experience behind this
That's
to
right.
be able to demonstrate that your mastery, if you will. And it was hard for some of them to understand, of course, maturity level partly, but it's like for me, I didn't have a master's, but I had 40 years of experiences that really, but I didn't get my college degree until I was 50.
Wow.
And so and I went to school online for all 4 years while I traveled. But it was interesting. It was almost affirming whenever I was going to all those classes, how everything that I learned that I didn't, what wasn't qualified to do those jobs, I thought, because I didn't have that title. I found that I knew far more than these other people,
Right.
and that my life experiences really did teach me a lot. And
Yeah.
so this the difference in I always say my 50s were my most favorite time because I no longer cared to break ceilings or do anything. I knew what I knew and I was okay with who I was. And
Yeah.
and I
Repetition's the mother of learning, right? We say that all the time, but it's true.
yeah,
The more you do, the more you experience, the more you do anything,
yeah,
the better you get at it. And you are right. I mean, knowledge, we've all heard this, right? Knowledge is only
mhm,
potential power. It's not until
yes.
you apply that
Yeah.
knowledge and put it to action that it
Hmm.
starts to really make a difference
Yeah,
in
for
not only your
sure.
life, but others, of course. Yeah.
So we're talking about the just briefly about those core genius or superpowers. So how do you develop them? Is it through that persistence, that consistency of doing things? But also, how does being courageous enough to push outside of your comfort level impact that?
Yeah, and that's huge, right? So
Hmm.
we all have what's called a self-identity set point, right? It's
Hmm.
like that thermostat on the wall. It's our
Hmm.
comfort zone. If it's set at 72 or 73, if things start getting hot, the air conditioning kicks in, right? So same thing with us.
Yeah.
Anytime we attempt to do anything that's outside of our comfort zone, and it's anything.
Mm.
We are beginners. And because we're beginners, we have the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of loss, the fear of the unknown, fear
Mm.
of fear, right?
Mm.
So it's about conditioning. It
Mm.
all comes back to conditioning. And how do we do that? Again, repetition is the mother of learning. The more we do anything, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
So like public speaking, and I know you're an excellent public speaker. The first time you get in front of a group of people,
You're scared crap.
yeah, I mean, I used to speak to hundreds of people in martial arts seminars, but they were all there. They were a captive audience. They came
Mm-hmm.
to take the seminar with me. But the first time I was asked to speak to a whole group of managers at State Farm, and I was
Mm.
like 21 years of age out of college, right? Uh, and some of those people in that audience were my boss and my boss's.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, my heart was in my throat. Now, after years and years of speaking, you get over that
Mm.
because you become desensitized to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, to answer that question is, how do you step out of your comfort zone? It's really conditioning, it's desensitizing, it's resetting the self-identity set point. So again, if you were to go to a thermostat, I'll use the analogy, and you turn it to 75. Well, now the AC doesn't kick in until it gets up to 75 degrees. If you keep adjusting it over a period of time, and even just little increment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the law of incremental improvement, just
Mm-hmm.
little tiny changes, by the inch it's a cinch, but by the yard, mighty hard. So that's, I always say to folks, look, if you're afraid to do something, that's okay. It's all right to fail. As a matter of
Mm-hmm.
fact, you know
You
this, you're
need to.
an expert.
Mm.
The most successful people in the world fail the most,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we've all heard that, and it's so very true. So, yeah, I hope that
Mm.
helped.
Yeah. I remember a speaker once said that, our life is like a book, and the chapter one, we can't act like somebody that we see that's been on the, chapter 21, because they've got 20 chapters already lived and done.
That's so good. I love that. I'm going to seal that.
You can, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
stole it. I thought it was so, you could really visualize that. Yeah, yeah. In chapter one, you're just learning, you're just uncovering the characters of your life, and getting the setting the stage of who you might be. And it's not until that you've gone through all those chapters that you start to understand.
Yeah, I call this in my book, I
Mm-hmm.
call this the success paradigm. And what it is it's basically 6 steps.
Mm-hmm.
Learn, grow, share, serve, lead, and inspire. So
Yeah.
what happens in phase one, which is learn and grow, and that's what you're talking about. You're in the memory stage. You're
Mm-hmm.
picking up knowledge. You're building your habits. This is
Yeah.
our formative years, right?
Right.
But as we continue to grow and as we do these things more frequently, now we enter into phase two. This is where we practically apply. This is where we do the do, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is this is where we share and where we serve. This is where we start to go, okay, I know this stuff. Let me start sharing it with other people. And it's that process there. That's the apprenticeship level.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we call it practical application. And then phase three, the last two, lead and inspire, excuse me, is where we've been doing it for so long, and we are really good at it now. I mean, some of us are experts at these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're not just sharing and serving, we're leading others and we're starting to help develop them at a level that they can then take over. They can succeed
Yeah.
you. They are your legacy. And
Mm-hmm.
so the inspiration portion of this is, always to help people to a level that they may
Yeah.
not have ever gotten to without your help serving through this apprenticeship that we're discussing. And it happened to me
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote about it. Had I not gone to San Diego back in 1979,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be a ninth degree, quote unquote, grandmaster of the martial arts that I am today, because I was able to study with
Mm-hmm.
somebody who was an absolute master at what they did. And those apprenticeships, by the way, those are very rare today.
Yeah.
Like you just said earlier, you were so spot on, where people get out of school and they immediately want to go into the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Where if they studied under somebody who had been at that level for
It would
some
be so
time,
much better.
yeah, so it
Yeah.
helps.
And I think two things I take away from that is first that at each of those levels, even though it's not stated, failure is part of each of those levels.
Every
A-
one of
a- And and then the second piece is that one thing you need to understand is just because you mastered it does not mean you don't restart that cycle that you just described, because you always need to keep learning. I think that's the fountain of youth for us, that we are always discovering and learning and growing and being more than we were yesterday.
I think that is beautifully stated, and I agree. I speak about this all the time, which is, look, you're a lifelong learner, right?
Yeah,
All leaders are
right.
great readers. If you're constantly learning, you are actually constantly stepping out of your comfort
Yeah.
zone. You're really
Mm,
always a beginner. The Japanese call this shoshin, and what it means is the beginner's mindset.
mm,
It's you're always humble because you're always learning from people that are experts at what they do, hopefully, right? If you're
right,
studying
right.
with the right people, and compared to where you are, right? And I'm that way too. I mean, honestly, in marketing, I study with people in marketing that are so far beyond me as in
Yes.
marketing realm and
Mhm.
or technology. I mean, I have clients
Mhm.
that know a whole lot more about technology than I do. And so when I'm teaching them certain things or sharing certain things, but sometimes I'm the beginner.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'm
yeah.
the one that's actually learning from them. So everybody can be our teacher if they are good at what they do. Um, so
So how do you balance your life?
Mhm.
That's a question that comes often in conversations, especially with young people. They're, as you mentioned earlier, everything's so fast. It's the fast food mentality. I want it now. I want it now.
Yes,
And with social media, they have all of these images of what their life should be like, and if they aren't there, they feel stressed. And so, how do you ensure? And I hate the word balance because I think it's a myth, but how do you ensure that there is a life a lifestyle that they want, that they desire, but it is one that is meaningful, you
yeah.
know?
No, I do. It's a great question, and it's that question that every one of us, everybody listening today, deals with this because we want to be more productive. We want to do more, but in the process of doing more, sometimes we end up into, stress, overwhelm. So this goes back to awareness.
Mm.
You really have to be in tune, if you will, in touch with how do I feel? I mean, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I need to take some time. I need a pause. It's okay to do a pause once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Going back to the apprenticeship, one of the best pauses I ever had was a 3 month sabbatical that I
Mm.
purposely went on to really get away from the noise and sit down and really figure out where do I want to go in my life. Now, not everybody can take 3 months. I did, but here's the thing: taking a pause. It can be just when you start to feel that way, get away from the computer. I mean, I have a little sanctuary behind me. It's a waterfall and some
Nice.
terrace landscaping, and it's my place I can go and be in nature. It may be just taking a walk, a 10-minute walk.
Mm-hmm.
It could
Mm-hmm.
just be learning to properly breathe, abdominally breathe.
Mm-hmm.
But this goes back to, again, I'm going to share some of my background with the Asian martial arts. Um, yin yang, right? If anything too extreme, anything we do too extreme puts us out of balance.
Yeah.
So if we are aware that we are out of balance, then we need to come back to the center. And the center is from your breathing.
Mm-hmm.
The center is becoming, once again, one with nature, going out and being in nature.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be calling a friend and taking a short time and checking in on somebody. And, we call that being intentionally, you're
Right.
intentionally doing something to bring you back to your center. So, I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's how I go about doing. Because we're all that same way. We're type A people. We're always
Mm-hmm.
trying to get better at what we do. Uh, Japanese term kaizen, constant,
Mm-hmm.
never-ending improvement. It's the mentality of I always want to do more. I always want to do better. But in the process of doing that, we sometimes take on too much.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been.
Yeah, I think especially for my female audience, I always talk about self-care, but I as I've been leading people for a while, it's really makes no difference if you're male or female. I think when we get driven, we forget about self-care. And so being back to center. I remember when I was working for an accounting firm and just before tax season, I would go to the beach. Even when I was married, I would just say, "Hey, hon, I'm going to Florida for a week," and I just would sit by myself on the sand, looking at the ocean to just get prepared for the craziness that was coming. So
Yeah,
that, yeah.
that's great. And you know what? It sometimes it could just be like I said, I've got a park behind me. It's
Mm-hmm.
205 acres. And I can go out the back gate of my fence, and within literally 20, 30 yards, I'm
Mm-hmm.
on a nature path. And
Nice.
whatever that is, whatever it is for you,
Mm-hmm.
that's the great way to get back to center. And I find getting back to nature is the
Yeah.
quickest way to do that,
Yeah.
getting away from all the hustle and the bustle.
Yeah, for sure. So, the final thing is really, how do I create positive, lasting, transformational change? I know when people are afraid of change, but really, our life is just always about change. Change is theirs,
Yes.
but really, that can result in us achieving our goals, that growth financially, personally, professionally.
Yeah, I really think it is to constantly be on the path, meaning
Yeah,
your life is going to happen either way. You will,
yeah,
you will, you will, you will get older. Now the question is, will you get wiser?
yeah.
Will you learn the things that you need to learn? And everybody has different things they need to learn, right? So what I need to learn probably is different than what you need to learn, but it's being aware and knowing what it is that you need to learn. Then you learn it. As you grow, you start to share it. And it's about
Mm-hmm.
sharing it with the right heart. I call this the spiritual gift of the artist. Um, and maybe because of my background, I use the word artist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see, the Asian martial arts at all about sports. I see it not about competition. I see it about completing
Yeah,
myself.
right.
Only person I've ever competed against is me.
Mm-hmm.
And so to find your gift, to use that gift to help as many people as you possibly can to find their gifts and help them to grow, that brings fulfillment. That
Mm-hmm.
that brings a legacy,
Yeah,
but that also brings happiness and joy because I think you would agree we always get more by giving than
that's
we do
right.
taking.
Always be
Uh,
first.
yeah, so I'm a real believer in, I'm not here on this planet just for me. I'm on
Mm,
this planet to help as many people as I can, and in the process, I've been blessed to be able to help a lot of people. So,
mm,
yeah, great question. All these questions are big questions,
yeah.
life-changing questions. So that's what I would say is, be on the path and, ask yourself from time to time, am I happy? And if you are
Mm,
happy, fantastic. But happiness is probably a whole lot more than just your bank account.
yeah.
It's going to be about what you do and what you give back because you've received so much and we have so much to share. So I think sharing and serving are the two key words from the path.
Mhm.
I really do.
And I think when you're on that master's path, you should give yourself grace to understand that the path can change.
Yes, it can.
And I remember when I was young, the thing was to have a 5-year plan, a 5-year plan. And then if you didn't achieve what you had in 5 years, it was almost like, well, you're less than you should be. But that's not true, because as you become more knowledgeable, as you start to master things, as you're exposed to different people, different processes, opportunities, you change
Yeah.
and your path can change. And I think it's okay. You got to understand it's okay.
It's like in the infamous words of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, life is what happens as you're making plans for the future.
Yeah.
I paraphrase, that's not the exact quote,
Yeah.
but yeah, regardless of what your plans are, life will happen. And this is why being resilient and sticking with things long enough, because there's going to be ups and downs. We all know that.
Mhm.
There's going to be life challenges. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I love that you said that sticking with it, because especially again, this is for my young audience out there too. I work with the youth, 9 through 17 as well. And so they expect that everything's going to come easy, or they just give up type sometimes. And it is, you got to go back to that toddler mentality where, okay, I'm going to learn to walk. Darn it, I'm going to learn to walk. I'm going to fall. I'm going to, get bruised and banged up, but I am going to learn to walk. And so I think that, again, that goes back to your persistence. Uh, at least give it a shot, keep on trying and until you start to master that. And then that's time to challenge yourself some more.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, we live in interesting times. We really do. I mean,
Yeah.
it is instant everything. And so as that continues, and it will,
Mhm.
I think, going back to the basics,
Mhm.
back to nature, right?
Yeah,
The
sure.
laws of nature work for a reason.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think what you just stated again,
Mhm.
very spot on.
Yeah. Oh, well, it has been awesome chatting with you. We'll have to do some more of this. But if you,
Or
audience, want to get to know John a little bit more, I'm sure you want to know how to connect with him. And so I'm going to share my slide as I always do. If you're just listening, you should have been taking notes all along, but go grab that paper pencil as well as check out the book. So you can go to the Amazon and pick up the book so you can learn more about the Master's Path. But John St. James is at johnstjames.com, as well as masters with an S, pathconsulting.com. And visit those websites. And I'm going to let John talk to you a little bit about what you might find at his websites. He's got social media as well. Find your best way to connect with him. So, John?
Yeah, so we actually, I'm building my social media platform, to be honest with you. And so what you're going to find right now is on the YouTube channel. There are a number of different podcasts that I've done on these topics. And then, of course, on the website, if you're ever interested, I do consulting. I also do coaching. I'm available for speaking. Obviously, anything that I can do to help serve you or your clients, your team members. I also, Vicki, work with youth, being over an international organization. A lot of
Awesome.
those people that take the martial arts are children. And
Mhm.
actually, the Leadership Academy I started years ago in
Oh,
Swanee, Georgia.
awesome.
That was a lot of children because the parents really wanted their children to learn how to stand up and to speak, how to do meet and greets, how to, goal orientation, all of that. So anything that will help people to learn, to grow, to share, to serve, to lead, and or to inspire. That's what you will find at my page, social pages, social media pages, rather, the website, the YouTube channel.
Awesome.
So I hope that helped.
Perfect. John, it has been just so great chatting with you. Again, we will have to do this again to
I
delve
love
even more so into the topic, because I think it, it is really one that the people need to hear and to embrace all that they can be, because that's what, finding your purpose is what it's all about. And
I would love to be back. And thank you for being so professional. And I mean that. I have been on podcasts. You are probably one of the most professional podcasters that I've
oh,
dealt with so far. I mean, from multiple reminders to, being on time to everything. It's been an absolute pleasure. So
thank
thank you,
you.
Vicki.
It's, this is one of those happy accidents in my life. I retired and took 2 years, not 3 months, took 2 years to have fun and travel and things. And then I realized that there was so much more that I could do to give back. And I am all about, how can I help others? And so this was just something that I found in the pandemic was a way to help people shut in. And it has been a joy.
Well, you're very good at it. So keep it up and keep me in mind in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As always, I remind my audience to remember that life is a journey and
Yeah.
it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.